Anybody to respond?
Good evening, Grandpa.
Hello?
Good evening, Grandpa.
Hello, Grandpa.
I just want somebody to respond back so that I can get the feel that you are hearing me, please.
Good evening, Grandpa.
Yes. Hello, good evening, Grandpa.
Good evening, Grandpa.
All right. So I get a sense that you can hear me. Right. So this is the second week, and I want to just give opportunity for questions from the previous discussions. If there is any area or anything anybody wants further and better explanation, please let me know. Otherwise, we move on to what we have for this week and for that matter for today. All right. So we are still going to continue with the components of the male reproductive system. And we've already discussed the testicles, we discussed the scrotum, we've talked about the epididymis, we talked about the vas deferens. So the other aspects that we're going to talk about. And here we're going to talk about what is commonly referred to as the accessory sex glands. And when you talk about a gland, you know that it's something that can produce a secretory. All right. So you're talking about those components of the reproductive system which also produces secretions to add up to the semen. All right. So collectively, we are the accessory sex glands. All right. All right. The major one of it is the seminal vesicles. The seminal vesicles. It is also called the seminal glands or the vesicular glands, the same thing. You know, over time, we've just tried to make sure that you get all the terminologies right so that if somebody is saying seminal vesicles and somebody is saying vesicular glands, I'm sure you appreciate that it's one and the same thing. So those are the names that means the same organ. So it's a pair, of course. You remember, we're talking about the male reproductive system, and there's always a left and right, from the testicles to the epididymis to the vas deferens. They are all paired, so they are in twos. All right. So similarly, the seminal vesicles is in continuum. It's a continuation of the entire system, and for that matter, it is also paired. It's located above the prostate gland. All right, it is put above the prostate gland and at the base, and for that matter, behind the bladder, and also in front of the rectum. So this is just a location so that you can appreciate where it is likely to be located. This is a gland which is located above the prostate gland, and it is behind the bladder and also in front of the rectum. All right. So we're going to see a picture of it, and you can appreciate it better. It is one of the internal male accessory sex organs, like I've said. When we talk about accessories, like a secondary, so instead of accessory, you can also say secondary. The primarily you are talking about the testes, all right. So the primary organ for the male reproductive system is, of course, the testes. All other things is just supporting it, and therefore they become accessory organs, and for that matter, secondary organs. All right. So remember, we said that some of them are external. For example, if you talk about the scrotum, the testes, they are all external. But when you talk about the seminal vesicles, it's not one of the external organs, it's inside. So that's why this one say it is an internal male accessory sex organ. So every aspect of the terminology, you should be able to appreciate it and understand it. And know why is it that this is external? Why is it that this one is internal? All right. So on the seminal vesicles, when you say it's a duct, it's like a tract. And if you remember when you talk about the vas deferens, you also said it's ductus deferens, so that one is saying it's a vessel, one is also saying that it's a duct. It's one and the same thing. All right. So this is also a duct. All right. So let me say that the gland, every gland will have a duct, a tunnel or a channel or a tract through which the secretions will have to flow out. So you're talking about the seminal vesicles having a duct. So the duct of the seminal vesicles will combine with the vas deferens. Let me see if you can get a picture of that. Okay. So the next one here, let me try to annotate it. So you see that this is the vas deferens coming from after the epididymis. And remember, the epididymis, we talked about the head, the body, and then the tail. All right. So the tail is also joined with the vas deferens. So this is the proximal portion. You said the proximal is proximity. So the one which is closest to the epididymis is the proximal portion of the vas deferens. It is joined to the epididymis. And then so the vas deferens will just move up here and then move in. And we said that the vas deferens will end in an ampulla. It is not viscous, it is not very visible here, but if you look here, you see that this is the vas deferens. Where it is going to end or terminate, it is enlarged. So this becomes the ampulla of the vas. All right. So we are talking about the seminal vesicles, which is this small thing here. So it is on top of this is your prostate, so it is on top of it, and it is also behind. This is the bladder. It's also behind the bladder. So this one, and of course, this is also the rectum. So you can put this becomes your rectum, and so that's why we try to explain it. So this is the seminal vesicles. So if you look at it, the seminal vesicles here, there is this small thing here, which is the duct. That's like the external something which is taking it out. So this is the duct of the seminal vesicles. So it is this duct, this is the vas deferens, and then this is the seminal vesicles. It has a duct. So it is this duct which is now joining with the vas deferens. Okay. And once it joins it, it creates the ejaculatory duct. I think we talked about the ejaculatory duct before. So you have to try to picture it so that you know that the vas deferens is coming right away from the epididymis. And before it ends, it expands to form the ampulla. And we said that sometimes it can also store some of the sperms, because remember, some of the sperms, most of the sperms are stored in the tail end or the caudal end of the epididymis. And the epididymis is joined straight away with the vas deferens. So once there's if, for example, if somebody has not ejaculated for a long time, of course, sometimes there's a spillover of the epididymis, so of the sperms in the epididymis into the initial part of the vas deferens. And if, let's say, all of a sudden we are going to talk in later stages, we're going to talk about sperm production and then semen analysis in proper, and then you're going to see it. So that you see that because the sperms are stored there. If for a long time you have not ejaculated, there is a spillover into the initial portion of the vas deferens. And if, let's say, you are there and you come across some lady and you are admiring or something, all of a sudden you see that the body is feeling some kind of way. There's that kind of orgasm of a sort. And then, even though there's no sexual intercourse, that the body will feel like it has to produce, it has to ejaculate or sense. So some of the sperms will now come into the urethra. And once they come into the urethra, then it means that if it is not proper ejaculation, then they will be locked there. So for most times, you are going to get sperms in the vas deferens, and then some of them will come to the ampulla, and the ampulla will store it. I'm sure you are following the discussion, and I'm saying that this is just preliminary. We are going to talk very much on sperm production, and then the what we call the sperm path, the pathway. You see that. So there's going to be some sperms along the vas. That's why sometimes, even if there is vasectomy, and then this side is tied, and you know that that's vasectomy. Either you cut or you tie it to prevent flow of sperms coming, because most times sperms will have been pushed up onto the ampulla here. It will also take a long, even after the vasectomy, it takes some time for all the sperms here to have been released out. So if you do vasectomy, it will take about 3 months for sperms to be totally absent from the semen, because the sperm life is about 3 months. Okay, so if even there's one sperm somewhere here, locked somewhere here, it will take about 3 months for the sperm to actually get dead or something in it. So if you do vasectomy, you will still be producing sperms. The sperms will not be coming from here. It is the sperms which over time have been pushed on into the vas deferens and locked up in the what do you call it? The ampulla of the vas deferens. And remember, the ampulla of the vas deferens is also has a link with the seminal vesicles. Seminal vesicles don't produce sperms. But look here, the vas deferens has a link with the seminal vesicles. So sometimes, since this place is storing some sperms, sometimes you can get some of the sperms also pushing up here. So it is not abnormal for seminal vesicles also to contain sperms. Not that seminal vesicles themselves are producing sperms. No, it doesn't happen. But the sperms which have been produced here, which over time have been pushed along this way when there has not been any sexual activity, those are unable to come out. They are unable to come out because there was no sexual activity. So the sperms are locked up here. And once they are locked up here, and there's a link between the vas deferens and the seminal vesicles, the duct of seminal vesicles, is also very, very common for the sperms, some of the sperms to move into the seminal vesicles. So that's, as we begin this discussion, you must appreciate some of these things so that once we move to semen analysis proper, it becomes easy and you understand the whole thing very, very well. All right. So let's go back and we see that the seminal vesicles, they will produce, store, and secrete a viscous fluid called seminal fluid or seminal vesicle fluid. But once we say seminal fluid, the confusion is that some people will call the semen as seminal fluid, but technically, seminal fluid is that fluid which is secreted by the seminal vesicles. So take note. The seminal fluid it is fine to call the semen analysis a seminal fluid, but technically, the seminal fluid is the part of the secretions or the fluid coming from the seminal vesicles. I hope that point is clear. Right. So the seminal vesicles, and for that matter, the vesicular gland, they produce, store, and then secrete, okay, the fluid called seminal fluid. All right, and I think that you have explained this thing already. So look at the location of seminal vesicles and look at how it relates with the vas deferens and also the ejaculatory duct. We said that the vas deferens will end in the ampulla, all right? And then the seminal vesicles too have a duct because this is a gland. A gland will produce, and once it produces something, it must have a way to send its fluid out. And that portion is the duct. So the duct will combine with the vas deferens to form what we call the ejaculatory duct. And you see the ejaculatory duct is actually in the prostate. All right. And then the prostate will also now join with the urethra. And then we said that the portion of the urethra which is located in the prostate is the prostatic urethra. I'm sure you know this from the previous lectures. All right. So still on the seminal vesicles. Seminal vesicles, right? I think I've explained this already. The seminal vesicle sperm storage may be the reason for continuous spermatozoa in the ejaculate of men after vasectomy. What I'm saying is here is that, and take note, it is not the case that seminal vesicles produce sperms. No. Neither do they store sperms per se. The sperms are actually stored in the ampulla. Remember, technically, the sperms are stored in the tail end or the caudal end of the epididymis. The epididymis is joined with the vas deferens. Once there is, let's say, a prolonged absence, especially if you haven't had sex for a long time, there is necessarily going to be a spillover, a spillover into that portion of the vas deferens. And once there's any phenomenon that makes the body think that there is a sexual arousal or something like that, then some of the sperms to move up as if they are ready to be ejaculated. They move up, and because probably there is not an actual sexual intercourse which will end up in orgasm, and for that matter, in ejaculation, those sperms will be stored in the ampulla of the vas deferens. The ampulla of the vas deferens joins with the duct of the seminal vesicles. And for that matter, it is very easy for some of the sperms to go into the seminal vesicles. So I've said this, I want to repeat again and again. Once they have done that, the sperms which are there will be locked up there or will be stored there. It doesn't make the seminal vesicles a storage ground for sperms. I want you to get that point very, very clear. All right. I'm saying that once that happens, that explains why even when there has been a vasectomy, in a situation where the vas deferens has been ligated or cut off or tied, there will still be sperms in the semen, so that if you want to test for a successful vasectomy, you don't do it, let's say, immediately or a week after vasectomy. You want to go and test for check semen analysis to know whether there's sperms. In that case, if you do semen analysis, your goal is to ensure that there is no sperm, there's azoospermia. Okay, because you have blocked sperm from coming. And so a test for semen analysis on a vasectomy, your result or your expectation is that the semen should contain no sperms. But I'm saying that can only be achieved only after about 3 months, because the potential for some of the sperm to have been stored in the seminal vesicles is very high. And for that matter, they will continue to be released. Even if you see even one sperm in an ejaculate, it means that the vasectomy had not been successful. But you can only make that conclusion only after 3 months. Okay, so we'll talk more about that, but I want you to get that explanation from the beginning. Say that the seminal vesicles contributes the majority of the fluid volume of the ejaculate, making up about 70% of the total volume of semen. We are not yet doing semen analysis, but these are critical information that you should pick up so that once you are doing the semen proper, you appreciate the discussion better. So you realize that semen is made up of the sperms and also a fluid. We are looking at which parts of the reproductive system contributes the fluid portion. We have seen that the cells, and for that matter, the sperms, is being contributed from the testes. What about the fluid part? The fluid part is what we see. The seminal vesicles produces 70% of the semen volume. All right. So in this case, once you have this understanding, if somebody's semen volume is low, I'm sure the first place to suspect will be the seminal vesicles. Because if I'm contributing 70% to a certain total volume, and somebody is also producing 30%, all right. Now, if the person produces all the 30%, which is 4, and I fail to produce my 70%, then the total volume will still be low. All right. If the seminal vesicles produce all the 70%, and then the other ones which are supposed to produce the 30% don't even produce, you see that 70% may make up for the minimum volume that you want. So whenever there is a shortage and there's a fall in semen volume, your first suspicion will be that there's a problem with the seminal vesicles. All right. You will not think about the testes, you will not think about the epididymis, you will not think about the seminal vas deferens. Because after all, how much do they contribute to volume? We are not talking about the quantity of the sperms in there. No, we are talking about the entire volume, whether it is cells or what. That is not the case. We are talking about the entire volume of semen. They're saying that the seminal vesicles produces 70% of it. So if there is a fall in the volume, the seminal vesicle will be the organ to target as a potentially defective. All right, good. The secretions of the seminal gland, and for that matter, seminal fluid, increases the viability and mobility of the sperms. That activates the sperm. So you see that the sperms are being produced from testicles, and they are coming almost dry. There could be some small fluid that may be contributed by the epididymis so that they can survive. All right. But the actual volume of the fluid is coming from the seminal vesicles. And you see that they feel comfortable, the sperms feel comfortable in the fluid environment. For that matter, for them to be viable, mobile, all right, for them to be very active, it means that the contribution of the seminal vesicles is what makes them alive. So if you are looking at the organ that supports the viability or mobility of the sperms, you have to attribute it to the seminal glands. So these are some of the things that you should appreciate right from the word go. So what is in the seminal fluid that, apart from the fact that it provides the medium for them to move, what is it in there that makes them active? All right, so let's move. So the secretions of the seminal vesicles. The secretions of the seminal gland, and for that matter, the seminal vesicles, is a yellowish viscous fluid, of course, called the seminal vesicle fluid, and have a key role in normal function of the semen. So what is in there? They are rich in fructose. You know that fructose is a carbohydrate. All right. So the major carbohydrate in semen is fructose, and is contributed by the seminal vesicles. So the energy for the seminal for the sperms to move is contributed by the seminal vesicles through the fluid. So you see, that's why you say that they need the sperms, even if they move, if the fluid is there, they don't have energy. then of course they cannot move. All right. So their source of energy is fructose. Their carbohydrate source is the fructose, and it's contributed, and for that matter, produced by the seminal vesicles. So the seminal fluid contains fructose. So if, for example, if you want to assess, for example, we said that if the volume of semen is low, you suspect a defective seminal vesicles. So what tests will you prefer, or will you try to do to assess whether the seminal vesicles are actually functioning? Then, of course, fructose, there's a test for fructose. You have to check for fructose test in the semen. If the fructose less of normal distance, then it means that seminal vesicles is also could not also be the cause. Then it means that but the seminal vesicles is also all right per the comes into question. So it is important that you know that the seminal vesicles contain certain parameters. So once you know the parameters that are present in certain secretions, you can test for those parameters to check for the functionality and what is its function. In fact, prostate glands. Why is it called prostaglandins when it is actually coming from seminal vesicles? The reason is that semen, the initial stage of semen analysis, they detected that semen contains high quantities of prostaglandins, and it was assumed revelations that show is actually a chemical, for that matter, a parameter which is coming from the prostate. It's very, very important for several reasons. For several reasons. You know that, remember, we said that within the reproductive system, from the testicles right up to the where the sperms will have to come out, there is a mechanism to protect it, the sperms, because sperms are seen to be foreign to the body. Remember, we said that, sperm is a haploid, and then the ovaries, the ovum from the female is also haploid, so that once they meet, then they form the diploid. I'm sure this one is so basic, everybody knows it. So the sperm cell cannot be identified by the body as belonging to its own. So the sperm cell is seen as a foreign agent. So there should be every means possible to protect it from having access to the blood. So remember, you talked about the testicle blood barrier. All right, the testicle blood barrier. So please, you need to appreciate that kind of stuff. And so from all along up to by the time the sperm is released, there is a conscious effort to protect it. All right. So, and you realize that at the end of the day, the sperms are also going to go into the woman, the female reproductive tract. And the female reproductive tract will necessarily see sperms also as foreign. All right. But prostaglandins is there to, the females also have prostaglandins. All right. And you see, it's like you are going to some place and then you have somebody who knows, let's say, the boss somewhere there. So even if the boss doesn't know me and I have somebody who is fronting for me and then the person is known to the boss, I'm sure that I'll be well received. So the prostaglandins is very, very known to the female reproductive system. And so once you have a lot of prostaglandins there, it is providing a means for the female listen to accept it as, oh, we are all the same thing. I mean, we are brothers and sisters, so please accept me. So prostaglandins actually providing an immune protection for the sperm cells. And you see that they are so much. They are coming from the seminal vesicles, which produce about 70% of the seminal fluid, and they are also the highest, the greatest amount of chemicals, let me put it that way, in the distance. So there's too much of it in there. And so the body, the female reproductive system easily accepts semen as belonging to it. So that is one of the major things that the prostaglandins does to make the sperm or the semen acceptable to the female genital tract or female reproductive tract. I hope the point is very clear, right? It is also smooth muscle contractions. Prostaglandins will let me put it this way. Once semen gets into the female urinary tract, we are going to talk how it gets there. Once there's ejaculation into the female reproductive, into the vagina, there's clotting. Okay, there's clotting. And we are going to talk about how and why the clotting should occur. And so there's also a mechanism for the clot to be also decoagulated or to be liquefied. Once they are liquefied, then the prostaglandins is a smooth muscle relaxer and then contractile center. So it is causing the cervix to try to be soft. All right. So once the prostaglandins are there, they allow the cervix to open up. All right. So once the cervix opens up, then the sperms can now enter. So it is playing a very important role because at the end of the day, reproduction, the semen is supposed to go in there and then also combine with the female ovaries. Okay. Now, if they don't have access to go there, then why would they? The sperms will just remain in the vagina and then nothing will happen. So the prostaglandins is just there to open up the cervix so that the sperms can go. This thing is very well known even in our traditional setup. You are told that in the villages, they will tell you that if a lady or a pregnant woman has to deliver, unless the time is due, and then the delayed labor, for example, they request that, oh, you should go and sleep with your husband. The essence is that, yes, at that point, the semen which enters the vagina has a lot of prostaglandins, which will just cause the cervix to relax. Okay, cervix to open up. And once that happens, then it is like it's triggering labor. All right. And so what I'm saying is that even with this one, the traditionalists who have no medical knowledge, they know this. They know this. All right. So that's the one of the roles played by the semen, and for that matter, prostaglandins. So let's take this one. Prostaglandins also aid in smooth muscle contractions, including peristaltic contractions of the female genital tract, to facilitate the migration of spermatozoa from the vagina into the uterine cavity. So I'm sure the point is clear there. Again, the seminal secretions, the seminal fluid secretions, the seminal gland secretions, which the seminal fluid is also very alkaline. And let's see the role it plays. The alkalinity, you see, we have said that the essence of semen or ejaculation or sex is to allow semen to get into the female reproductive system. That's the essence. And for that matter, to also combine with the female counterpart for reproduction. Right. All of us know that the vagina is highly acidic. All right. And acids will kill the sperms. So the essence of the seminal fluid to become alkaline is try to neutralize the acidity of the vagina. As simple as that. And again, also, we know that the urethra serves a dual purpose for micturition, which is urination, and also for semen, for the semen. So once we when I say we as men, we urinate very often, and urine is acidic. All of us know that urine is basically acidic. So once urine is acidic and then you urinate quite often, it means that the tract has a residue of acid, as simple as that. So if you are going to allow semen, which also will be killed by acid, to just flow through the urethra, then at the end of the day, all the sperms will be killed. So the essence of the seminal fluid is to produce an alkaline fluid which will neutralize the acidity of the, first and foremost, of the urethra. All right. So because the urethra will also always have acidic residue because of the frequent urination, the tract will have remnants of the acid from the urine. So the seminal vesicles is coming in with an alkaline content to neutralize it. And also, most importantly, it's going to go into the vagina, which is also very, very acidic. And so the alkalinity of the seminal vesicles is to neutralize both in the urethra and also the vagina, so that the sperms can survive. So I'm sure these things are very easy and simple to understand. So the alkaline nature of the seminal fluid is to perform this function, neutralizing the acidity of the male urethra and the vagina in order to facilitate the survival of the spermatozoa. So by altering the vaginal tract pH, which is highly acidic, it helps to keep the sperm alive in the vagina. I hope I've explained this one enough. Seminal vesicles. So they also have clotting factors. And this, so you see that the seminal vesicles plays very important roles in semen. All right. Look at the all the things that we talked about. And then clotting factor. They also have clotting factors, although it is going to be behave like a blood. All right. So the major clotting factor here is fibrinogen. So it casts fibrinogen, and then there's going to be clotting enzymes that will act on the fibrinogen to form fibrin. You know that fibrin is the major component in clot formation. So once seminal vesicles, the fluid from it will produce fibrinogen. Then there are also enzymes. These enzymes will be coming from the prostate. Okay, from the prostate end. Remember that the seminal vesicles is on top of the prostate. So it means that they don't have direct link with the prostate. Otherwise, the clotting will have taken place in vivo. All right. So the seminal vesicles will produce its fluid. They will come down and then now be joined by the prostatic fluid, the prostatic fluid from the prostate. Okay. So that will now initiate a clotting. So then the question is, why should clotting occur? I'm saying that we will do the semen, but this one, with this understanding, becomes easier when we get there. Semen has sperms in there. And remember, you said that their major preoccupation is to go and fertilize. And they have to go through the vagina, and vagina is acidic. So if the fluid is allowed to flow in the vagina, though the seminal vesicles has an alkaline pH, but once they are spreading in the vagina and the place is acidic, even though there will be an effort to try to neutralize the acid, but all the sperms will be dead because of the high acidity of the vagina. So what will happen is that if you want to preserve them, then you have to form a clot. A clot is to form a gel. You know gel. When something gels, they will form like what we call coagulation. The end product is a coagulum. So they will form like a bucketing. And once that happens, it means that all the sperms, majority of them will be concentrated inside. So it is only the outside, if let's say they form a ball, then all of them will be inside the ball. Only the outside will be exposed to the vaginal environment. Okay, so it is a means of protecting the sperms. And then with time, as that once that has been achieved, then with time, we're also going to talk about the prostate, what happens. Then the prostate will have protease. Once the protease is like an enzyme that breaks down proteins. So then they will break down the coagulum. And then we talk about the prostaglandins, which will also open out the cervix for it to move. So it's very, very interesting. And that's how nature works. So the seminal vesicles will have to produce the clotting factors so that the sperms can be coagulated to protect the sperms from being exposed to the vaginal environment. So the formation of the seminal gel is designed to keep semen in the female reproductive tract post-ejaculation, that is after ejaculation, and also help to keep the sperm alive longer. All right, so these are things that you should appreciate. So it means that the seminal vesicles play key roles in protecting our sperms, especially in the vagina. All right. So there are things in the seminal fluid. So it appears to be the case that without the seminal vesicles, it will be difficult for semen to play any significant role. All right. So there are also certain proteins in the seminal vesicles. Sorry. All right. You continue. There are also certain proteins that are secreted or that are found in the seminal fluid, and for that matter, secreted by the seminal glands. One is called fibronectin, and then the most important thing is seminogenes. Seminogenes, you have seminogen 1, seminogen 2. All right. And their role is to, you see, the sperms are made to move. They are supposed to be moving. So even in the coagulum, remember we said that the fibrinogen will be activated by coagulating enzymes for it to form fibrin, and then it will gel, it will clot, form a coagulum. Now, even in the coagulum, no sperms are designed to be moving. Even in the coagulum, the sperms will be trying to move. Okay, the sperms will be trying to move even in the coagulum, and they will spend a lot of their energy trying to move. Meanwhile, coagulum have been formed. And so if you have been crippled already and you are struggling to move, it means that by the time that you are released in the vagina, you can't even move because you have expended all your energy trying to move within the coagulum. So the sphenogenes is we call it sperm motility inhibitor. So it is trying to keep the sperms within the coagulum immotile. Say that, my friend, wait, it is not time for you to go out yet. So once in the coagulum, just remain calm. Your time will come for you to move. So something like that. So God is so wonderful. I mean, how things have been designed. So there's this protein, the seminogenes, whose responsibility is to keep the sperms immotile within the coagulum. Say that, my friend, you are being protected for a very good cause. Okay, so remain calm, and when the time comes, so that is, I'm just trying to make it look funny so that you can appreciate it. So the sphenogenes will cause the sperms to be stable within the coagulum. All right, and we have explained the reason for the coagulum. The coagulum is just said that the semen will not spread within the vagina for all the sperm to be killed. The coagulum is to bound the sperms and everything intact so that they will be protected from the vagina harsh pH. So sphenogenin, very, very, very important. Very, very. Otherwise, if they are not there, the sperms within the coagulum will be struggling. By the time they are released, they have lost all the energy to move. Meanwhile, they are going to move up there to cause, what do you call it? Fertilization. Okay. I hope the point is clear there. Other products of the seminal gland secretions are acid alpha glucosidase, acid alpha mannose, beta N-acetyl hexokinase, gamma glutamate. These ones are useful in fluorescence studies. You see that if, let's say, somebody is accused of having had a sexual intercourse with somebody, and let's say they have some tiny specimen to deal with under in fluorescence studies. These are the targets. You just look at some of these things. If any of these things show positive, then it means that there is fluid, which suggests that the thing is coming from the seminal vesicles. Okay, and since it comes from the seminal vesicles, then it is indeed semen. And if it's semen, it means that somebody has caused them to come out and something like that. So it is important as scientists, it's important to get an idea about some of these so that you know that these are all the other things in the semen which will suggest that the secretion is actually coming from the seminal vesicles. So Any questions so far? From the chat, I'm not seeing any question. Either you put your question on the chat or you can speak out. All right. And I hope that you are following the discussion very well. So we talked a lot about the seminal vesicles. The next important organ is the prostate. So it is a walnut-sized organ located in front of the rectum and just below the bladder and surrounds the urethra. Talk about the location in this way so that you can picture where it is likely to be. All right. Walnut size is like over here, what can be like size of a cola, cola, this thing. So that is for an adult size prostate. You're saying adult size because prostate before puberty, and I'm sure all of us know puberty. Before puberty, the prostate is almost, you can't even see the prostate. So from puberty, where the hormones begin to be formed, all right, we are going to talk about the endocrinology of the male reproductive system, and you see how all these things begin. So you have the a trigger of the gonadotropin hormones that will release luteinizing hormones and then follicle-stimulating hormones. And you said that luteinizing hormones will go into the testis, follicle-stimulating hormones will also go to the testis. But surely, the luteinizing hormones will go to the Leydig cells in the intertubular or interstitial space. Okay, and then Leydig cells will also produce testosterone. And testosterone is just nothing but a product from cholesterol. So the Leydig cells, once they have been stimulated by the luteinizing hormones, they will use cholesterol. So it is not like cholesterol is bad. Cholesterol is not bad. If you don't have cholesterol, you can produce testosterone. Testosterone is produced from cholesterol. Okay, so, and I've said we are going to talk about all these things in real time and in details, and you appreciate all of them. So that triggering will now form testosterone, and the testosterone, once you've said, it is that which will now cause the secondary sex characteristics to also manifest. All right, where you begin to break your voice, where hairs will begin to grow in your face and stuff like that. And then, of course, the prostate will begin to now show up or will begin to be enlarged. All right. So that one will continue until adult age. So you see that the size will not be the same from let's say puberty. It will not be, the size will not be the same as adult. All right, so that's what I'm trying to explain. All right, so a normal size prostate is about 25 grams, approximately the size of a walnut or chestnut. And then the prostate tends to get larger with age, making it easier to see that once you are an adolescent, in fact, before puberty, you virtually have no prostate. Okay, then from puberty to adolescent, then the prostate, under the influence of the testosterone, will now begin to get bigger and bigger. By adult time, it will become big enough, and that is what can be located. And we are going to talk about how to locate the prostate in the course of the discussion. So it consists of a base, an apex, an anterior, posterior, and lateral. So let's see how that one appears in a picture form. All right. So let me see if I can get light on that. All right. So of course, this is the prostate. Remember, the sternal vesicles is here. It has a duct that will join the vas deferens and then to form the ejaculatory duct, all in the prostate. And then this is the urethra. Remember, the urethra you have here as the prostatic urethra, okay, because there's a portion within the prostate. You have the membranous urethra. You remember that, penile urethra, and then the glands. All right. So this is the prostate. Look at the location very well. This is the rectum. So you see that it has a relationship. The prostate has a relationship with the rectum. So what it means is that, and as we move along, we're going to talk about prostate massaging. Okay. So if you put your hand in the rectum, for example, and you push it a little bit front, you are going to touch the prostate. Very, very simple. Okay, you don't go deep. You have what you call digital rectal examination. Digital is not like electronic. No, digital is your hands are digits. All right. So once you put your finger, I'm talking about your fingers, not your hands. When you put your fingers are the digits. So if you put a finger in the rectum, it's a digit in the rectum. So digital rectal. And then you are just using that one to examine the prostate, because once you can feel this one, you can have an idea, of course, an experienced person can have an idea about the size of the prostate. Okay. And even if there are lumps in it, just as we examine the women for their breast for lump, you can just, an experienced physician will just put this in, and then we'll feel the prostate, and then we will know that, oh, the prostate is enlarged, or there seems to be a lump in the prostate, or there seems to be this too hard, so it could be a cancer of the prostate. That all these things can be done. So it is important to know the location of the prostate and see how it's related to the rectum, and how you can get access to, you can locate the prostate via the rectum. Okay, very well. So we're talking about the apex, the base, the posterior, and then the lateral. This is the nature of it. Remember, you have your vas deferens already here, the seminal vesicles, where they join together to form the what do you call it? The ejaculatory duct, all within the prostate. All right. So this is just an example of what I tried to explain. So it is possible to feed the prostate gland by inserting a lubricated finger. Of course, you have to lubricate the finger, and then of course you have to wear gloves. So if you wear gloves with a lubricant, that makes it easier to insert your finger into the rectum. All right. And this ones, you don't even need to be a physician. I mean, remember, there is, like I'm saying, in our subsequent discussion, we're going to talk about the conditions and physiological phenomenon of all these organs. And we're going to see how the prostate can be massaged to produce prostatic fluid. All right. So you put a finger into the rectum and then pressing toward the front of the body. It is usually soft and smooth. So once you put your finger into the rectum, then push it a little bit forward, you are going to touch something, some smooth muscle listen, and that is the rectum. Okay, all right. So this just trying to show that. So remember we said that it has a posterior end, anterior end, apex, and a base. So once you pass your finger to the rectum, what you're going to touch is the posterior lobe of the, this is what we are trying to say here. What you touch from the rectum is the posterior lobe of the prostate gland. And that exercise is called digital rectal examination, DRE. And digital here is not about electronics. Digit is the fingers, your digits. All right. And once you are putting a finger or a digit into the rectum for an examination, it is called digital rectal examination, and for that matter, DRE. All right. So let's try to look at the prostate, the functions of the prostate. The primary function of the prostate is to produce prostatic fluid, which also mixes with the other fluids and sperm to make semen. All right. So by the time you finish, at least you have a fair idea about the composition of semen. Remember, we talked about the sperm being produced. So these are the cells. They are coming up through the vas deferens to the ampulla, then into the ejaculatory duct, into the prostate. And then before then secretions from the seminal vesicles will have joined the ampulla of the vas to form the ejaculatory duct. So there's the sperms are now being mixed with the seminal vesicles. And then they move down and then they go into the prostate. Then the prostate too, the prostate is also going to secrete some fluid, which we call the prostatic fluid. So this is also adding up to form the semen. All right. The fluid secreted by the prostate nourishes and protects sperm. All right. So remember all the fluid. The major fluid, like we discussed before, is the seminal vesicle fluid. The seminal vesicle fluid. That's the major fluid. All right. We've seen what it contains and the role of each of the contents, how they all protect, and for that matter, make the sperm active. Then we also bring in the prostate, which is also producing the prostatic fluid. So the prostatic fluid will help to nourish the sperms. All right. So during the ejaculation, the prostate squeezes its fluid into the urethra and it's expelled with the sperms as semen. I think this is already well known. The prostate contributes 20 to 30% of the fluid to the total semen volume. Remember, we talked earlier about the seminal vesicles producing up to about 70%. So it means that the rest of it is almost produced by the prostate as prostatic fluid. But you see that there's going to be some small difference because this one is, if this one produces 70, and this the seminal vesicles produce up to 70, this one produces up to let's say even 20%. Then that's 90%. Then there's some 10%. This 10% is shared by the, even though the sperms are cells, if you put cells into a vessel, it's going to give you a volume. All right, as you have red cells. If you pack all the red cells, they are cells, but they will give you a volume. So that's why you have PCV, pack cell volume. So even though they are cells, if you pack them, they will give you a volume. So sperms, even though they are cells, if you pack them, they give you a volume. So that volume cannot be taken for granted. All right. So, but all in all, the prostate is contributing between 20 to 30%. Don't say that this take 30%, and for that matter, this one is also 70%. So then the entire volume of semen is produced by seminal vesicles and prostate. That's not correct. Because it's a range. Because it's a range, there is variation that can be accommodated by other parts. That's all that I'm trying to say. All right. So, say on secretions from the prostate. The secretions of the prostate include proteolytic enzymes. Remember, when you say proteolytic, then it's going to break down. Okay, proteolytic enzyme. You also have prostatic acid phosphatase. In fact, you should appreciate this very well because before PSA became the marker for prostate, laboratories or for that matter, clinicians were using acid phosphatase tests to determine a prostate function. All right. So this is just by the way. But of course, PSA has now becoming the most dominant and then most acceptable marker. Otherwise, in previous times, it was the acid phosphatase. Of course, you know, we use alkaline phosphatase in assessment of liver function. So the acid phosphatase was also used to detect for prostate function. So I'm just trying to let you know that acid phosphatase is a remarkable or a key marker for the prostate. All right. So of course we have fibrinolizing. Remember we said that the seminal vesicles contain fibrinogen, and that is to be converted to fibrin. Once it forms fibrin, it will lead into a coagulation, a coagulum, and for that matter, a clot. That clot will have to be broken down. Remember, we said that it is for a purpose. The clot will have to form to protect the sperms in the vagina. So, but they cannot be protected forever. They cannot remain in the clot forever. Otherwise, how are they also going to move? And remember, we said that the seminogen is to also immobilize the sperm. So if you have immobilized them, you also form a clot. Then it means that the sperms will have no way to move. So the fibrinolizing is to break down the fibrin. Okay, so that once they break down the fibrin, and then we've also talked about the prostaglandin. The prostaglandin will also cause the cervix also to open up. So these things, once you understand them, becomes easier for you to appreciate when we are actually doing the semen and then formation of semen and then the analysis of it. So of course now the most common is the PSA. But so I'm just saying that these are all markers of the prostate. PSA, importantly, acid phosphatase. These are two major parameters for assessing the prostate. So PSA is one of the most abundant prostate-derived proteins in the seminal fluid and mainly responsible for gel dissolution in freshly ejaculated semen by proteolysis. I hope that point too has been explained already. Right. Elevated levels of PSA in the blood is often diagnostic of abnormal prostatic growth, such as occurs with cancer of the prostate. This one, I'm sure all of us know about it. So that because it's a marker from the prostate, once it's becoming high, then it is giving you a signal or indication that the prostate is becoming bigger or becoming diseased. One thing that we will do, in later discussion, we could talk about how to test for all these things. But remember that now the PSA is the major marker. One thing that people forget is that whenever you try to massage the prostate or try to put the the prostate in some kind of pressure of a sort. If you do PSA to show up, it will go up. This is something that scientists you should know. Even if somebody, let's say, drives a bicycle, so you see that when you driving a bicycle, it's mechanical. Okay, so it's like you are putting pressure on look at where the testis is, and look at where the position of the prostate. So if you are driving you're on a bicycle for a very long time, and then you are coming to a lab, and then you didn't take a car, and then you say, okay, let me drive my bicycle, and then you come and do your blood test. PSA will show up, will go up. If you have had sex the previous night, you do your PSA, it will show up. So these are small things as scientists we should know, so that we don't misdiagnose. That's just that way. But we will talk more on these ones once we get there. So many of the proteins secreted by the prostate are proteases. Remember, we said proteases are enzymes that will actually break down proteins. And for that matter, they are also proteolytic. Proteolytic is breaking down of the other proteins. Remember, we said that one of the major phenomenon of semen is coagulation. You must coagulate. But the other aspect is that they must also liquefy. And the liquefaction is actually what do you call it? Started by enzymes and proteins from the prostate. So sometimes if you have a semen which does not it's a gel, like a gel, which should be normal. And after time, you should liquefy. Sometimes you get some semen and the whole day it is not liquefying. So where is the problem coming from? Is it from the seminal vesicles? Is it from the testicles? Of course, it cannot come from any of these places, but from the prostate. Because the prostate, that must produce the secretions that is proteolytic. That will have to break down the gel. So if the semen is not gelling, if semen is not liquefying, so if semen is not liquefying, of course, straight away you should know that it is a prostatic problem. That's all that I'm saying. Right. We also saying here is that prostatic fluid is slightly acidic. Okay, prostatic fluid is slightly acidic. So remember, we said that the seminal vesicles is highly alkaline. So on the whole, semen will be alkaline, because look at the composition of prostatic fluid and then the seminal vesicles. Seminal vesicles 70%, and this is 30%. This is only slightly acidic. The 30% is highly alkaline. So at the end of the day, the total mixture of the semen should be alkaline. That's why semen is usually, almost every semen should be alkaline. If semen is acidic, then it means that there's a problem for the seminal vesicles. So these are the things that you should appreciate from the beginning, so that once you're doing the semen formation, all those things become simple. Semen is contributed, the volume is contributed heavily by seminal vesicles, which is alkaline. There's also a 20 to 30% contribution from prostatic fluid, which is also slightly acidic. So automatically, the end product should be alkaline, because the seminal vesicle composition is higher. So if you do your semen pH and it is acidic, straight away it means that the seminal vesicle failed to produce its full complement of the fluid. All right, so that's how we try to interpret the results of our semen analysis. All right. So there's another important function of the prostate. Another important function of the prostate, and that's closing the urethra during ejaculation. Okay. So here we are saying that the prostate is a mechanical switch between urination and ejaculation. Remember, we said that the bladder, just below the bladder, you have the prostate, and it is linked with the urethra. And then we're also going to have the ejaculatory duct, which is a union of the vas deferens and then the seminal vesicles also coming into the prostate. So the prostate will have to now regulating what should come out from the ejaculatory duct and what should also come out from the bladder. All right. So it does so through muscles. So that's why we say it is a muscle-driven mechanical switch. There's a switch between the urination so that it decides if there's urination, then you open up the channel for urination. If there's ejaculation, yeah, but it will not allow the two to be open at the same time. So it is important. The first point is very, very critical. The prostate is a muscle-driven mechanical switch between urination and ejaculation. And you know this already, that during ejaculation, the prostate contracts and squeezes prostatic fluid into the urethra. So in ejaculation, we are saying that the semen is going to come out, and it's coming out from the portion that we described. And then the prostate will also have to contribute its fair share of the fluid. So to have to contract, if a contract is squeezed, that spits the fluid into the urethra. And once it spits into the urethra, it is going to combine with the what do you call it? With the coming from the seminal vesicles. All right. Let me see, there's all right. There's a request to show the mechanical switch, but unfortunately, I don't have a picture for it, so I will try to probably find one and then show you subsequent discussion. But I thought that was going to be easier. So when it says a switch is either on or off. All right. And once something is being done by like through an action, it is actually a mechanical or physical. Okay. And here we are saying that it is through the muscles, the muscles of the prostate. So the muscles will, for example, we have the sphincters. Okay, that will close and open. So I'll try to show pictures if I have some in other discussions, but I'm just saying that the prostate performs that function of like switching in between urination and ejaculation, and that's so through its own muscles. So that's why I said it's muscle driven. Mechanical is like when I say something mechanical, it's like a manual, some of a sort, manual, right? So during ejaculation, the prostate will contract, and then once it contracts, it pushes fluid into the urethra, and that's the prostatic fluid. This is why in typical anatomical situations, it is impossible to urinate and ejaculate simultaneously. I'm sure this one, all of us are adults, and you can appreciate this one, that it is very, very unusual for you to ejaculate and urinate at the same time. Even though there's a condition called climacturia, where you can have urine mixing up with the listen. That is very rare, especially when there is prostatectomy, where the prostate has been removed. If the prostate has been removed, there's a prostate that must do the switching. So if the prostate has been removed for whatever reason, especially if there is prostatic cancer, prostate of the cancer, the surgically the prostate will be removed. If the prostate is removed, it means that that kind of function of mechanically switching in between the uterine cannot be performed. And therefore, it's possible that once you have sexual activity, you can ejaculate and also urinate at the same time. And therefore, we'll talk about some of those called climacteria, a mix of the urine and the semen at the same time. All right. All right. So I'm assured that my director has found a YouTube of the prostate mechanical switch for urination and between for the urination and then the ejaculation. That is great. So after this, my director will show you a YouTube video of it so that you can appreciate it better. All right. But I just wanted all of us, we are all adults, to appreciate the fact that it is very, very unusual. It is almost impossible to urinate and ejaculate at the same time because of the role of the prostate, which is switching in between urination and urination and ejaculation. So this is the last of the glands under the accessory glands. The accessory glands. This is the last of it. That's the bubourethral glands. The bubourethral glands, also called the Capes gland. A very, very interesting and a very small gland. If you look at where it is located, let me see. This is a very small gland here. All right. And if you know this to be the urethra, this is the prostatic urethra. This portion is within the prostate. Of course, this is the bladder. This is your prostate. And this is the prostatic urethra. Remember, we talked about the membranous urethra, this portion. And then from here, you have within the body of the penis, you have the penile urethra. So here is the membranous urethra. And this is where the bubourethral tract, the duct of the bubourethral gland. Remember, whenever you have a gland, the gland is a secretory apparatus. And once it secretes something, there must be a tract or a duct to carry it along, to carry it away or something. So this bubourethral gland will produce its fluid, and then this is a small duct of it, which will now push it into the membranous urethra. Okay, because now from here it has moved out of the what do you call it? Of the prostate. All right. Remember we talked about that small junction between the prostate and then the body of the penis. There's a portion there, the membranous. So this is where the bubourethral gland will also push its fluid into. Right. So it's also known as the corpus gland. Of course, it's a pair and it's exocrine. So exo means that it's producing outside. Located post-lateral, so it is that's posterior and lateral at the same time. So that's posterolateral. So, and that's where it is, posterior and lateral. And then it will now push its content into the membranous urethra. All right. So they directly connect to the urethra and contribute to the final volume of the semen by producing a lubricating mucus. What it means here is that whether you like it or not, it's also producing a steady fluid. Remember that the fluid coming from the seminal vesicles and then the sperms also coming from the ampulla or the vas differential or the vas difference will all meet in the prostate. And then the prostate will also add its prostatic fluid. And then they are coming through the urethra. And then in the membranous urethra, the bulbourethral gland will also push its. The interesting thing is that the bulbourethral gland will not wait for the seminal fluid or all those things to come. It will rather bring its own out first. So the whole system is called is an ejaculation. So the fluid, the entire fluid is ejaculate. Now, the bulbourethral gland will not wait for the seminal vesicle fluids and then the prostate, all those things to come out. Rather, to push its own out first. Because the pushing its own one first, we call it pre-ejaculate. It's like when I say pre, mean before the ejaculation. So instead of waiting for all these ones to come before it also, for example, the prostate will not produce pre. So the functions of the bulbourethral glands, and we say that during sexual arousal, the bulbourethral glands produce a mucus secretion containing glycoproteins. That one is clear. This fluid secreted out before the main ejaculation, and it serves three main purposes. Now let's see those purposes. One, it serves as a lubrication medium for the urethra. It serves as a lubrication medium. We are saying that ejaculation. And I'm sure all of us are adults. And as men, you see that whenever you are in any foreplay, before insertion, you will see that the tip of the penis will just get wet. And if you get a feel of it, you see that it's slippery. So, and when that happens, you tend to think that probably you have even ejaculated before even the actual sexual activity. It's a natural phenomenon which is causing the bulbourethral gland to prepare the urethra. It's like when they say the president is coming to town, I'm told that they send a patrol team, sometimes even 3-4 hours before the president will come. So that just to prepare the way to make sure that there's no security threat. So the bulbourethral gland, looking at the position as it is, will just try to prepare the urethra, and then because it's slippery, and then of course the urethra too will open to the urethral meatus. I'm sure you remember the urethral meatus. That's the opening. So then it means that technically the urethral opening will also be wet. And when it's wet by a liquid which is also slippery. So what will happen is that it will facilitate penetration. So let's look at the second point. So it expels any residue of urine. Remember, we said that the urethra is used for urination, and so it It is just clearing any residue of urine, dead cells or mucus through the urethral meatus, preparing a clean and lubricated pathway for ejaculation. All right. It helps to neutralize residual acidity in the male urethra, secretions of the. What we are talking here is that if you don't take it, you think that, but this is the same role which the seminal vesicle is going to play. Remember, you said that seminal vesicles also has an alkaline pH and supposed to neutralize the alkaline, sorry, the acid residue of the urethra. When we do the semen itself, and we're going to do ejaculation, you see that ejaculation will occur in phases. The first phase is coming primarily from the prostate. Okay, once coming from the prostate is already acidic. Okay, at least slightly acidic, and so once it's going to pass through the urethra, if you don't get the pre-ejaculate with its alkaline secretion to actually clear the way, it will also going to be problematic. So the pre-ejaculate, which is coming from over urethral gland, is just to prepare the ground for the first portion of the ejaculation to also get through without being contaminated with the urethral secretions. I hope the point is clear. So the pre-ejaculate accounts for less than 1% of the semen volume. So you know that's very, very, very small, very, very small compared to the semen volume. It's just less than 1%. All right. These secretions may carry spermatozoa that remain in the urethra after a previous ejaculation. So remember that you have seen situation where somebody will say that, oh, I didn't ejaculate. And so you may have penetrated, but say you did not ejaculate, and therefore, if there's any pregnancy, you say that no, it is not me. Scientifically, what happens is that, and like I've said, when it comes to the semen formation, you see that the semen comes out in spurts or in fractions. So, and then the bubble urethra will be the first one to come out because it's preparing the way. So that's why it's pre-ejaculate. When you have the sperms coming in the latter stages, and you know that this is also a tract which is joining. So it means that there is a connection between the tract and then the urethra itself, because this one is opening into it. So it means that there's a space. So some of the sperms can move into, just as we talked about the seminal vesicles. Remember, you said that the sperms are coming from the vas deferens to the ampulla, and then they are joining at the ejaculatory duct. And because the ejaculatory duct also have a link with the duct of the seminal vesicles, now some of the sperms moving into the seminal vesicles. You remember that information. Right. Similarly, if you have sperms also moving out at the latter part, then some of the sperms can move into the bulbourethral gland. And once they move to the bulbourethral gland, it becomes like they have been stored there. And remember, next time, if you're going to have a sexual activity, and then the bulbourethral gland will also come out first. Okay, when the bulbourethral comes out first, remember, if you have had sex, let's say the previous day, the sperms can survive for 48 hours in there. And so you will have penetrated. You said that you didn't ejaculate. But remember, before you can ejaculate, there's the pre-ejaculate, which may have contained sperms from the previous ejaculation that you made. So these are scientists. These are some of the information that you have to get accepted, so that if you have the opportunity of being confronted by a scenario like this, you can explain that yes, it is possible that yes, you because you had a previous encounter with, let's say, somebody else, and you ejaculated. This one you did not ejaculate, but there's something called pre-ejaculate, which will come out automatically, even whether ejaculate or not. But that's the first thing that should come out, and that one could have sperms from the previous ejaculation that we did, and that could cause what do you call it, a pregnancy. All right, so as scientists, these are some of the information that we should acquaint ourselves with so that we can. And so this is an overview of the male reproductive system, all the things that we talked about. From here, the testes, the epididymis, the vas deferens, coming all the way. Remember here, you have your ampulla, then you have your seminal vesicles. The duct of the seminal vesicles and the ampulla will join to form the ejaculatory duct, and they do so within the prostate. All right. So, and then the prostate will have the prostatic urethra. They move. This is where you have the bulbourethral gland also pushing its what do you call it, fluid into the urethra. Then they will come out as sperms. So this is your penis. So this is an overview of it. All right, thank you. This will be the end for today's discussion. And when we meet, we are going to look at the, so it means like we have talked about all the components, taking them one by one and talk about all of them. So the next step is to look at the conditions, physiological phenomenon, functional defects, diseases, and disorders that can affect any of those parts. Okay, so you can talk about the testes, so we are going to take them also one by one, and then look at the conditions that can affect them, the physiological phenomena. Here you're going to talk about the penis, the erection, what will cause a problem with erection, and so forth and so on. Functional defects, disease, everything from each of the components that we talked about. Thank you so much. We are done for today. I told you my director is going to show you the YouTube of the function of the prostate as a mechanical switch between urination and ejaculation. So that if you are there, you can show your the YouTube.
The seminal vesicles, male reproductive system include the testes, seminiferous tubules, epididymis, ducts, urethra, and penis. The seminal vesicle and prostate and bulbourethral glands produce nourishing fluid for the sperm. The testes subdivide into lobules that contain seminiferous tubules that produce sperm. Sperm moves from the seminiferous tubules to the efferent tubules to the epididymis where they mature. The end of the epididymis forms the ductus deferens or vas deferens. Of this structure ascends the posterior border of the testes, penetrates the inguinal canal, enters the pelvic cavity, and loops over and around the urinary bladder. The seminal vesicles are glands at the base of the bladder that produce seminal fluid. Together with the ductus deferens, they form the ejaculatory ducts. During ejaculation, these ducts eject sperm into the male urethra, the common passageway for urine and sperm. The prostate gland surrounds the prostatic urethra just below the bladder. The fluid it secretes goes through small ducts into the prostatic urethra. The bulbourethral glands produce alkaline mucus secretions that empty into the urethra. The urethra passes through the penis carrying semen, a mixture of sperm and secretions of the glands. During ejaculation, the smooth muscle sphincter at the base of the bladder closes off to ensure that no urine is expelled and that semen does not enter the urinary bladder. Sperm moves from the seminiferous tubules to the epididymis, to the ductus deferens, to the ejaculatory duct, to the outside of the body by the urethra.
Thank you. So you see that within the prostate, it has a mechanism for blocking urine whenever there's going to be ejaculation. And by the time you get to semen formation, you will have appreciated a lot about these things. I'm sure you've learned something. You will learn more as you move along. So, for example, if you talk about, the epididymis, there's a phenomenon called epididymal hypertension. Anybody with an idea about epididymal hypertension? I'm sure if I say the local name, everybody knows it. But technically or medically, it's called epididymal hypertension. That's what we call the blue balls. I'm sure all of us know about blue balls. So when there is a sexual arousal that does not terminate in ejaculation, okay, if you have, I'm sure all of us are adults. So even the ladies too, even if you're a lady here, you don't experience it, but you are the cause of it. If you put a man into a situation where you think that there's going to be a sexual activity and it doesn't happen, you see that the body is preparing itself to ejaculate. Anytime there is sexualism, the body is preparing itself to ejaculate. All right. And remember, we talked about the pre-ejaculate, where it will even come even way ahead of any, before it even insert. The pre-ejaculate will have come. So remember, we've also said that a lot of the sperms are produced and stored in the in the caudal epididymis, that's the terminal end of it. So whenever there is, they themselves, they are preparing to come out, the sperms are ready to come out. So they are pushing some sperms up. And in pushing, it's like the continual involvement in the sexual activity will now cause culminate into the orgasm, which all of us know. If it doesn't happen, it's like the epididymis was trying to push, and in trying to push, it's like it will need some pressure to push. Is that not it? So it's like that activity will just not come to an end. And then once there is no ejaculation and the epididymis have been activated to try to push, it creates a tension in there, which you call epididymal hypertension. And it's very, very painful. And every, I'm sure all of us have an idea about what to call blue balls. So blue balls, the medical name is epididymal hypertension. These are some of the things that we're going to talk about. The things that we know already, we're going to put more light on them. And then we have ladies among us, in fact, women, they are the cause of the epididymal hypertension. Is that not it? So please, that's just by the way, but what I'm saying is that from the next discussions, we're going to talk about all the conditions, all the disorders, all the diseases that can affect each of the components of the reproductive system. All right. Any other question or any contribution, anything? All right. On that note, we bring today's session to a close. See you again tomorrow, same time. Bye-bye.